The wind that morning was strange. It whispered secrets through the tall palm trees, secrets only a brave heart could hear. In a small, sunny village called Aduke lived a young boy named Tomi. He was barefoot, bright-eyed, and filled with dreams too big for his small world. Tomi had only one treasure, an old drum that once belonged to his father. Tomi didn't know where his father went. Some villagers said he had traveled to a big city. Others whispered that the forest had claimed him. But Tomi held on to one clear memory: his father's gentle laughter and the soft, steady beat of that drum every night. The drum was very old now. Its skin was cracked, and the wood was dry and worn. Yet Tomi kept it close, treating it like a heartbeat of memory and hope. It was the only thing connecting him to the brave man he could barely remember. One evening, Tomi was helping his mother sweep the yard. The sky quickly turned dark, and its storm began to rise. Thick, heavy clouds swallowed the sunlight, and the air grew still and quiet. The giant trees groaned, bending low as a fierce wind commanded them. Tomi knew he had to save his treasure from the rain. The whisper in the storm. Tomi ran quickly to bring the old drum inside before the rain poured down. Just as his small fingers touched the dry wood, a flash of lightning split the black sky. Crack! And then, a moment that changed everything. The old drum beat itself. Just once, a deep, loud, thunderous boom. The sound rolled through the whole village, shaking the ground. Tomi froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The storm stopped immediately. The fierce wind died down. The air became completely still, as if the whole world was holding its breath, listening. Then came a voice, soft and gentle, like a breeze carrying a message. Tomi. He looked all around. There was no one there. Tomi, the voice said again, a little clearer. Do not be afraid. I am the drum of truth. Beat me only when truth is needed. Tomi's hands trembled. He dropped the drum and ran inside to his mother. Mama, Mama, he cried, his voice shaky. The drum, it spoke to me. His mother looked up from the fire. She smiled kindly, but her eyes looked tired. She said, You must be very tired, my son. Go and rest. But Tomi knew what he had heard. The sound was too real, the voice too clear. Deep inside, a powerful feeling told him this was only the beginning of his journey. The market and the lie. The very next morning, the village square was noisy and buzzing. The marketplace was filled with people buying, selling, and gossiping. Suddenly, a loud, angry shout rose above the noise. It came from a rich man named Bako. Everyone knew Bako. He was famous for being greedy and cheating people. Bako was shouting about his missing goat. He pointed an accusing finger at an old widow, the poorest woman in the whole village. She stole it, Bako screamed, his face red with anger. Punish her now. We must stop her wickedness before others learn to steal too. The poor old woman fell to her knees in front of the crowd. She cried, her eyes filled with tears. I swear by the spirits, I am innocent. I never touched your goat. But no one in the crowd believed her. They all knew Bako had power and money, and the poor woman had nothing. Tomi stood quietly at the edge of the crowd. He was clutching the old drum tightly to his chest. The words of the secret voice echoed loudly in his mind. Beat me only when truth is needed. Tomi took a deep, brave breath. This was the moment. He had to help the innocent widow. He stepped forward into the crowd's silence. Tomi stepped into the middle of the crowd, facing the angry rich man, Bako. "Let the drum decide," Tomi declared loudly. Laughter filled the market. People found it funny that a small boy with a beat-up toy drum wanted to stop a powerful man. "A boy and his toy?" Bako mocked, sneering. "Go home and play." But Tomi did not move. He ignored the laughter. His hands were steady. He looked at the drum, remembering his father's gentle rhythm. Tomi struck the drum once. Boom! The sound was not a toy sound. It was deep, powerful, and serious, as if the earth itself had spoken. Then a clear, ringing voice came directly from the drum. "The widow speaks truth. The goat was never hers to steal. Let the innocent be free." Gasps filled the air. Everyone was completely silent, looking from the drum to Bako, whose mouth was hanging open. In that very moment, Bako's own servant pushed through the crowd, trembling with fear. "Forgive me, master," the servant cried, falling at Bako's feet. "I hid the goat. You told me to." The crowd roared with shock and anger at Bako's lie. The poor widow wept with relief, lifting her hands to the sky to thank the spirits. From that day on, everyone in Aduke village knew the truth. The poor boy's drum was no ordinary drum. It spoke only truth. The king hears the news. The incredible story of the talking drum traveled quickly, not just through Aduke, but far beyond the village gates. Not everyone was happy about a drum that told the truth. Far away, in the grand palace of the kingdom, the news reached the mighty King Adeyan. The king sat on his glorious throne, surrounded by gold and guards. He listened to the messenger's tale and threw his head back and laughed. "A boy with a talking drum?" the king scoffed. "A simple drum that judges powerful men? This is impossible. Bring him to me." So Tomi was taken from his small village and brought to the magnificent palace. He walked through massive doors and down long hallways, holding his old drum tightly. The palace hall was truly grand. It was filled with bright gold, rich carvings, and many people dressed in proud, expensive clothes. Tomi felt very small. King Adeyan looked down from his high golden seat at the small boy standing before him. "I hear your drum speaks truth," the king said, his voice loud and demanding. A royal boom. Tomi knew the drum would not lie for the king. He closed his eyes, thinking of his honest father, and struck the drum. Boom! The voice that came from the drum was not loud, but it was perfectly clear and wise. The greatest ruler is not he who sits upon a throne of gold. The greatest ruler is he who rules with truth in his heart. A worried murmur swept quickly through the entire palace hall. The king's face instantly darkened with rage and wounded pride. "You dare to insult your king in my own palace?" he thundered, rising from his throne. "It was not I, my king. It was the drum. I only allowed the truth to speak." The king was too furious to think clearly. "Then let us see if this magic drum speaks for others too." He roughly snatched the old drum from Tomi's hands. The king raised his hand high and struck the drum hard, but no sound came. Only silence. The king struck it again and again, demanding an answer. "Why will it not speak for me?" he yelled in frustration. Then, faintly, a tiny whisper came from the drum. "Only truth can awake me." The king grew absolutely furious. He hated being shown that his heart did not hold the truth. He shouted, "Guard, take this boy to the forest. Let him be lost and let him never return." Tomi was marched away and left in the deep, dark forest, all alone. Back in the palace, the angry king tried to forget the boy and the drum, but he could not. Day after day he tried to sleep, but peace would not come to him. At night, when the white moon rose high in the sky, the king began to hear something strange. It was a faint, ghostly rhythm. It came from the treasure room where the silent drum was kept. Boom, boom, boom. Each time the king had been greedy or stolen something or lied to his people, the rhythm grew a little louder. The king's heart grew heavy with fear and guilt. He closed his eyes, but his dreams were now haunted by the sound of drumming and the voices of people crying out for justice. He tossed and turned, but the drum's beat was a constant, steady, accusing sound against his royal pride. He had stolen the drum, but the drum was now stealing his peace. He tried to have the drum destroyed, but his servants were too afraid. Finally, after many sleepless nights, the king could not take the fear any more. His strength and his pride crumbled. He sent his fastest messenger out to the forest to find Tomi and bring him back to the palace. The Council of Truth. When Tomi returned to the palace, the great hall was dark and silent. The king looked weak and very tired, slumped on his grand throne. He was no longer angry, only afraid. "Boy," the king said weakly, his voice barely a whisper, "tell your drum to stop, please. It beats all night, accusing me of everything I have done wrong. I cannot rest." Tomi looked at the powerful king, who now looked like a frightened old man. "It beats only for truth, my king," Tomi replied gently, walking toward the silent drum. "Perhaps it wants you to listen to the beat. Listen to what is right." Tears suddenly filled the king's eyes. His royal pride was completely gone. He finally spoke the true words that had been locked inside his heavy heart. "I have lied," the king confessed, his voice breaking. "I have been greedy and have stolen from my own people. I have punished the innocent just to protect my own wealth. Tell me, Tomi, what must I do now?" Tomi walked to the drum and touched its worn skin softly, treating it with respect. "Speak the truth, my king," Tomi answered simply. "Let your people, the whole kingdom, hear it from your own voice." The king nodded. He knew what he had to do. He stood up straight, feeling a strange new strength inside him. The next morning, the king gathered the whole kingdom. Every man, woman, and child came to the great palace square. They stood waiting, confused, wondering why the king had called them. The king stood before them, not on his high throne, but down in the square with his people. He was trembling, but his eyes were clear and honest. He began to speak, and he confessed everything: the greed, the lies, the theft, and the injustice he had caused. The people gasped. Some wept with sadness over the harm done to them. Others bowed their heads, listening to the truth they had always suspected, but never dared to speak aloud. The air felt heavy with the weight of his confession. When the king finished his honest confession, Tomi stepped forward. He raised the drum of truth, holding it with respect. Boom! The drum's voice came softly, full of calm and finality. The truth has been spoken. The king has listened to his heart. Peace shall return to this kingdom. Now the healing must begin. Just as the drum's voice faded, the skies opened up. A gentle, cool rain began to fall on the crowd, a cleansing, peaceful rain. The people cheered for their honest king. The king himself fell to his knees and wept with relief, finally free from his guilt. The future of the kingdom felt hopeful and bright once more.
The rain stopped, and the sun shone brightly on the newly cleansed kingdom. From that day on, King Adeyan was a changed man. He was no longer the ruler who hid behind gold and lies. He ruled with complete honesty and focused on justice for his people. The drum of truth became a treasured symbol. It was kept safely in the palace, but not locked away in a dark room. Instead, it was placed in a special open courtyard where everyone could see it. It served as a constant reminder to the king and his advisors that only truth should guide their decisions. Tomi, the small boy from Aduke, became the king's most trusted advisor, known as the Keeper of the Drum. He helped the king make things right. They worked together to return stolen lands, free innocent people from prison, and create new laws that were fair to the rich and the poor alike. The people trusted their king again. They knew that if he ever strayed, the silent drum was watching. They often brought their hardest problems to Tomi, knowing he would always point them toward the truth. Tomi never beat the drum for small things, only when a lie threatened to cause great harm. Tomi knew that the drum was more than wood and skin. It was the voice of conscience. One day, a great merchant arrived at the palace, boasting about his immense wealth. He told King Adeyan a fascinating story about finding a legendary gold mine deep in the mountains. "My king," the merchant declared, bowing deeply, "I have promised to share this wealth only with the ruler who is truly truthful and pure of heart. I want to know if you are worthy of my secret." The merchant looked at the drum of truth in the courtyard. He smiled faintly, a sly look in his eyes. King Adeyan, thinking of his kingdom's prosperity, felt a moment of old greed creeping back into his heart. He wanted that gold. He was tempted to boast about his honesty or even stretch the truth about the good he had done. Tomi watched the king closely. He saw the struggle on his face. The merchant turned to Tomi. "Keeper of the drum, what does the drum say about this king? Is he the most truthful man in the land, worthy of the secret mine?" Tomi calmly picked up the drum. This was a true test of the king's new heart. He struck the drum gently, not with a boom of thunder, but a soft, steady rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was quiet, almost a whisper, but it filled the courtyard. King Adeyan heard the drum's gentle beat. It did not speak a single word, but the soft rhythm was a question. Are you speaking with a heart of truth or a heart of greed? The king took a deep breath. He looked at the greedy merchant and then at Tomi, who stood patiently with the drum. "Stop, Tomi," the king said, raising his hand. The drumming ceased. He turned to the merchant. "I do not need the drum to answer you," the king said firmly. "I was once a dishonest king, full of lies and greed. I have worked hard to change, but I am still only a man. I cannot claim to be the most truthful in the land." He continued, "However, I promise to rule with honesty from this day forward, whether you share your gold or not. The value of truth is greater than the value of any mine." The merchant's sly smile disappeared. He confessed that the gold mine story was a test, a trap to see if the king's honesty was real. He was amazed by the king's humble answer. "Your honesty is your true wealth, King Adeyan," the merchant said, bowing truly this time. "You have passed the test." Tomi smiled, knowing the king had listened to his own conscience, awakened by the drum. The drum of truth had taught the king to speak for himself, even when silence was tempting. The echo that remains. Years passed peacefully. Tomi grew older and much wiser. He was no longer just a boy, but a respected elder and friend to the king. The drum grew older too. Its skin was thin, and its sound was deep and calm, like a quiet river. Every evening, the children gathered around Tomi under the great storytelling tree. He would share the wisdom he had learned, often ending with the same message. Truth is like a drum. It may be silent for a while, like it is sleeping, but when the time comes, it will always speak. But the best truth is the one you speak yourself. One quiet night, when the moon was full, Tomi sat alone beneath that old tree. He touched the drum gently and whispered, "You have spoken the truth for me all my life. You have taught our king to be honest. Now let others learn to speak for themselves." The drum gave one last final beat, deep and peaceful, like a closing chapter. Then there was silence. The next morning, the villagers found Tomi resting quietly, with a gentle smile on his face. Beside him, the drum of truth had turned completely to dust, carried away forever by the wind. And ever since that day, whenever someone lied in the kingdom, people said they could still hear a faint echo far in the distance. Boom, boom, boom. A final, soft reminder that truth never dies, and even the smallest voice can shake the world.